Elias stands in his dim apartment, holding his phone as it buzzes in his palm, the faint light flickering across his tired face. He lets it ring out, breathing slowly, like he's trying not to break the quiet around him. His chest tightens even though nothing is happening, yet every shadow feels like it's waiting for him to slip. He whispers to himself that it's only anxiety again, the same noise he's learned to ignore. But something in his stomach twists like it's trying to pull him toward a truth he doesn't want to see. The walls feel closer than they should, and he can't tell if the silence around him is comforting or warning him. When the phone lights up again, he watches it without moving, feeling the tremble run down his fingers. And for a moment, he wonders if fear is only the surface of something deeper inside him trying to speak. And then the thought hits him like a cold rush. What if his mind isn't panicking, but pointing at danger he forgot existed? Elias walks through the hallway outside his apartment, each step echoing louder than it should, like the building itself is trying to listen to him. He keeps his arms close to his sides, unsure why the air feels heavier the farther he moves from his door. A neighbor's TV murmurs through the walls, but the sound seems distant, almost warped, as though his mind is filtering out anything that doesn't matter. His heartbeat thumps in his ears, not fast, but steady, in a way that makes him wonder what it's preparing him for. As he reaches the stairwell, he pauses and grips the railing, trying to ground himself. But all he feels is a tension rising through his chest. He tells himself it's just another anxious moment, something he can breathe through. Yet a quiet voice inside him whispers that this isn't fear. It's recognition. Something around him feels wrong, and he doesn't know why. Elias steps outside into the cold morning air, the sky washed in gray, as if the world hasn't fully woken. He pauses on the sidewalk, letting the breeze push against his face, hoping it will wake something calmer inside him. Cars move past in steady lines, but their sounds feel muted, as though he's disconnected from the rhythm of everything around him. He checks his phone again, not because he expects anything, but because the silence feels heavier when he doesn't. He walks toward the bus stop with slow steps, noticing how every small movement around him draws his attention in sharp pulses. A stranger's cough, a door shutting, a dog barking from a balcony above. None of it is dangerous, but each sound lands like a quiet signal. He wonders if his mind is trying to show him something he hasn't figured out yet. At work, Elias sits behind his desk, trying to focus on the soft glow of his computer screen. The office hums with quiet conversation, keyboards tapping, and the soft buzz of the air conditioner. But even with all the familiar sounds, he can't shake the feeling of something pressing from inside his chest. Or a starward contraction inside his chest. Naomi passes by and gives him a small smile, the kind that usually eases him. Yet today it only makes his pulse jump, as though she sees something he doesn't. He shifts in his chair, pressing his palms against his knees, trying to steady himself. He tells himself he is just tired, maybe stretched too thin. But deep down, a strange certainty grows. His mind isn't reacting to nothing. It's responding to something he can't yet name. When Elias returns home that evening, the apartment feels colder than it should. He closes the door gently, listening to the soft click echo into the quiet space. He stands still for a moment, waiting for the familiar calm that usually greets him, but instead there's a slow, rising unease curling through his chest. He moves to the center of the room, staring at nothing in particular, and his mind fills with a strange pressure, like a memory trying to surface but unable to form. He breathes deeply, steady and slow, but the sensation only grows. It feels like he's standing at the edge of something he doesn't understand, some truth hiding just beyond reach. And for the first time, he wonders if the voice in his head isn't warning him of danger outside, but danger buried somewhere within him. Elias sits on the bus with his hands tucked into his sleeves, watching the city drift past in slow motion. The world outside looks normal, yet every bump in the road sends a jolt through his chest, as if his body knows something he doesn't. He tries to steady his breathing, counting each inhale, letting his thoughts settle. But the quiet inside him only sharpens the strange pull he's been feeling. He closes his eyes for a moment, hoping to calm the tension running up his spine. But instead, a faint flash crosses his mind. A hallway he doesn't recognize. A door half open. A voice whispering his name. When he opens his eyes again, the feeling lingers, heavy and insistent. He wonders if his anxiety is trying to show him pieces of something hidden, like scattered signals he hasn't learned to read yet. When Elias reaches the therapy office, he hesitates before opening the door, fingers resting lightly on the handle as if waiting for his mind to settle. Inside, Mara greets him with a calm nod that usually eases him, but today, it only magnifies the strange thrum beneath his skin. They sit across from each other, and she asks about the sensations he's been feeling. He tries to explain, stumbling over words that don't feel big enough to hold the pressure inside him. He tells her about the flashes, the heaviness, the moments when the world feels like it's hinting at something he can't see. Mara listens closely, her quiet attention almost grounding him. And when she asks if he thinks the fear might be pointing towards something real, he feels his breath hitch. The thought frightens him, but it also feels true. Later, Elias walks through a quiet park, trying to let the cold air clear his mind. He watches the trees sway gently, leaves tumbling across the path, and for a moment he feels almost normal. But then the buzzing returns, not loud, not sharp, just a slow vibration deep inside him like a distant warning. He stops near a bench and presses his palm to his chest, closing his eyes as another faint image flickers through his mind. Footsteps behind him, a shadow stretching long. The sense of someone speaking softly, just out of view. When he opens his eyes, the park is still and harmless, yet his heart beats with uneasy rhythm. He whispers to himself that maybe he isn't losing control. Maybe he is remembering something. At home again, Elias sits at his small kitchen table, staring at a blank notebook he brought out without knowing why. His fingers hover over the page, waiting for a thought to form. The room is quiet, but his mind isn't. He feels a pressure building inside him, like something wants to be written, even if he doesn't understand it yet. He tries to recall the flashes from earlier. The hallway, the voice, the shadow. But every time he reaches for them, they slip away like smoke. The tension climbs through him until he has to close his eyes and breathe slowly, grounding himself with the steady hum of the refrigerator. When he opens his eyes, the stillness feels different, heavier, almost expectant. He wonders if the memories aren't gone, just hiding. Night settles over the apartment as Elias sits on the couch, lights off except for the soft glow from the window. He pulls a blanket over his legs, trying to steady the unease circling inside him. The city hums beyond the glass, distant and indifferent. He closes his eyes and lets the quiet fill him, hoping it will push away the strange warnings that keep rising from within. But instead of fading, the pressure grows sharper, like a message trying to break through. He feels a flutter of panic, but it doesn't feel random. It feels pointed, directed. He grips the blanket and whispers into the darkness, asking what his mind is trying to show him. The silence offers no reply, yet the heaviness in his chest answers for it, steady and sure. Something is coming. Elias wakes before sunrise, his heart already tapping a nervous rhythm as though something pulled him out of sleep. The room is dim, shaped by faint blue light leaking through the blinds. He sits up slowly, feeling the weight in his chest before the day even begins. When he stands, a sharp wave of dizziness washes over him, and for a moment he grips the edge of the dresser to steady himself. Another flash hits him, quick and blurry. A dark room, someone calling his name, the sense of a door closing. He tries to shake it off, but the echo clings to him like cold air. He moves through the apartment with careful steps, trying to ground himself, yet every quiet corner seems to tug at something buried inside him. He whispers, a question he can't answer. What is he starting to remember? On his walk to work, Elias follows the same route he always takes. But today, every familiar landmark feels slightly off, like he's looking at a version of the street from a dream he once had. A chill runs through him even though the morning air is mild. He passes a brick alleyway he's never paid attention to before, yet as he steps by it, a sudden jolt shoots through him. He stops mid-step, staring into the empty corridor. Something about the narrow space pulls at him. A strange ache deep in his chest. He doesn't know why it feels important, but the sensation grows heavier the longer he looks. For a moment, he wonders if he's been here before. Long ago. Maybe late at night. Maybe with someone else. The thought unsettles him so deeply he has to turn away before he loses his breath. At the office, Elias tries to distract himself with work, but the images keep pressing into his thoughts. The alley. The whisper. The dark doorway. His fingers hover above the keyboard, frozen as another faint memory stirs. He hears Naomi greet him softly as she sits at the desk next to his, her presence grounding yet strangely distant today. He tries to respond, but his voice feels trapped. As he looks at his screen, his reflection in the glass seems slightly off, like he's not fully here. Another flash hits him, sharper this time. Footsteps behind him, someone speaking his name with urgency, a hand grabbing his arm. His breath stutters and he grips the desk, forcing himself to stay present. Naomi watches him with concern, but he can't explain a feeling he doesn't understand. During his lunch break, Elias steps outside to escape the tightness in his chest. He leans against a brick wall and closes his eyes, letting the street sounds wash over him. For a moment, the noise blends into a low hum, and another memory flickers. This one clearer. He sees himself in a dim hallway, breathing hard, turning back towards someone calling his name. The scene feels so real, he opens his eyes with a gasp. He starts to walk, hoping movement will shake the image loose, but the air around him feels charged, like something is waking up inside him. He wonders why Jonah has been avoiding him lately, why his friend seems uneasy whenever they talk. The thought settles heavily, and the pieces inside him shift again, forming shapes he still can't see fully. When evening comes, Elias sits outside his building on the front steps, watching the streetlights turn on one by one. The cool air settles around him, but his thoughts feel warm and frantic. He keeps replaying the flashes in his mind, trying to catch the edges before they fade. He remembers Jonah texting him earlier, a short message that felt strangely cautious. Jonah never used to sound that way. Elias scrolls to the conversation now, staring at the glowing screen as unease curls through him. The tension inside him builds again, but it doesn't feel like fear this time. It feels like recognition. Like his mind has been trying to warn him about something connected to someone he trusts. He closes his eyes, letting the truth hover just out of reach. Elias wakes with a sharp gasp, gripping the sheets as another flash fades from his mind. This one was clearer than the rest. He saw himself standing in a doorway, breath shaking, someone behind him calling his name with a tone that felt wrong. He sits at the edge of the bed, rubbing his face, trying to steady the trembling in his hands. The room is silent, but his thoughts roar with questions he can't quiet anymore. He feels the pull inside him stronger than ever, like his mind is pushing him towards something he's avoided for years. As he stands, a cold certainty settles into his chest. These aren't random memories. They belong to something that happened, something he buried deep enough that even fear couldn't reach it until now. And whatever it was, he senses Jonah at the center of it. On his way to therapy, Elias moves quickly, almost without noticing the world around him. His heart feels heavy but focused, like the fragments inside him are finally forming a pattern. By the time he steps into Mara's office, he knows he can't keep avoiding the truth, pressing against his mind. He sits across from her and tries to explain the flashes, each one clearer than the last, each one pulling him toward the same unnamed memory. Mara listens, her expression steady but intent. When she asks whether someone from his past could be tied to what he's remembering, Elias feels the name rise instantly. Jonah. Saying it out loud sends a cold shiver through him. He doesn't remember what happened, but his body reacts as if it does. Later, Elias walks home through quiet streets, letting the cool air steady his racing thoughts. His mind circles Jonah's name, trying to connect it to the flashes. He remembers laughter, long talks, nights spent sharing worries. But then another image surfaces. A dark argument, raised voices, a look in Jonah's eyes he doesn't recognize. He stops walking, staring ahead as another memory slips through. A hallway. Dim lights. Jonah grabbing his arm. His breath catches. He presses his hand to his chest, feeling the old fear rising again. Sharper than anything he's felt before. The truth is close. Almost close enough to touch. And the realization fills him with a mix of dread and clarity. His anxiety wasn't random. It was trying to protect him. Back inside his apartment, Elias pulls an old box from his closet. One he hasn't touched in years. Dust coats the lid, and something inside him twists as he lifts it open. Old photos, notes, scraps of memories lie inside, each one stirring emotions he can't place. He finds a picture of him and Jonah, smiling at something he can't remember. The sight triggers another flash. Jonah shouting, Elias backing away, someone slamming a door. His breath grows uneven as the edges of the memory sharpen. He realizes he didn't forget because it was unimportant. He forgot because remembering hurt too much. He sits on the floor, holding the photo, feeling the truth slipping through him like waking from a long, heavy sleep. As night settles, Elias sits near the window, the photo resting beside him. The truth feels closer than ever, like a door he's about to open. He closes his eyes and lets the tension rise, no longer fighting it. The final memory comes suddenly, sharp and full. Jonah yelling, grabbing his arm, pulling him back during a fight Elias had tried to walk away from. The fear wasn't about the moment itself. It was about what followed. The betrayal. The harsh words Jonah never apologized for. The way it fractured something inside Elias. He had buried it to survive, but his mind never stopped trying to warn him. Tears sting his eyes as he realizes his anxiety wasn't a flaw. It was a signal he didn't know how to read. Elias walks through the city with his hands tucked in his pockets, the cool wind brushing against his face as he moves with a purpose he's never felt before. His thoughts are loud, but steady, each one shaped by the truth he finally allowed himself to see. Jonah wasn't just part of his past. He was the center of the fear his mind had been trying to bring back into focus. The memory of Jonah grabbing his arm lingers like a bruise he can't fully shake, but now it carries clarity instead of confusion. Elias knows he can't move forward without facing him. As he nears Jonah's building, his heartbeat rises, not with panic, but with a pull towards something long overdue. He feels the weight of the truth settle inside him, firm and undeniable. His anxiety wasn't just fear, it was protection he ignored. Standing at Jonah's door, Elias hesitates for only a moment before knocking. The sound echoes through the quiet hallway, steady but tight. When Jonah opens the door, his friendly mask slips for just a second, replaced by something unsure, almost guilty. Elias feels the room tilt slightly. The memory of Jonah's voice yelling, his arm being pulled, rushing back with sharp clarity. Jonah invites him in, but Elias stays at the doorway, needing space to keep the truth clear. He tells Jonah about the flashes, about remembering the fight, about how his fear never came from nowhere. Jonah listens, eyes shifting as he searches for words. The silence between them grows thick, filled with all the things they never faced. Elias realizes his mind knew the truth long before he did. Elias steps inside but stays near the wall, giving himself room to breathe. Jonah moves around the small living room with restless energy, rubbing the back of his neck as if preparing for something heavy. Elias explains how his anxiety grew louder, Each time he ignored the flashes, how every warning was tied to that fight they never spoke about. Jonah's face tightens as he listens, the truth sinking into him as well. After a long pause, Jonah admits what Elias always sensed but never heard. He had been angry, scared, acting out of insecurity he never owned. He didn't realize how deeply he hurt Elias. The words hang in the air, raw and overdue. Elias feels a quiet tremor inside. Not fear, but recognition of the wound his mind tried to protect. The conversation deepens, unearthing pieces Elias didn't realize were buried. Jonah explains how the fight that night spiraled, how he grabbed Elias without thinking, how his own fear turned into anger. Elias listens quietly, feeling each word settle into the spaces that had been filled with confusion for years. The truth isn't clean or simple, but it's real. Elias realizes his anxiety wasn't trying to harm him. It was pushing him to remember the moment he stopped trusting someone who mattered. A strange calm spreads through him as he finally connects the pieces. The warning wasn't darkness. It was clarity trying to break through. He exhales slowly, releasing years of pressure. When Elias leaves Jonah's apartment, the hallway feels strangely lighter. The weight in his chest is still there, but it has changed shape. It is no longer a knot of fear, but the ache of something finally understood. He walks slowly toward the stairs, feeling the echoes of the past settle into place, with a clarity he never expected. His anxiety quiets, not disappearing but softening, as if relieved it no longer has to shout. He grips the railing and takes a deep breath, steady and full. For the first time in years, he feels aligned with himself, not fighting the warning inside him, but listening to it. And in that quiet moment, he understands that healing wasn't about silencing his mind. It was about learning why it screamed. Elias walks home through the quiet evening streets, each step feeling strangely new, as if he's learning how to move without the constant weight of confusion pressing on him. But the moment he reaches his building, a sudden rush of panic hits him, stronger, deeper, rawer than anything he's felt in weeks. His body tenses, breath catching as his vision narrows around the faded stairwell door. It's the same surge that used to send him spiraling, but now something inside him understands. His mind isn't attacking him. It's reacting to the truth he finally uncovered. He grips the railing, letting the panic pulse through him instead of fighting it, feeling its shape and message. For the first time, he sees the fear not as a threat, but as an old alarm still ringing. And standing there in the dim hall, he whispers that he's listening now. Inside his apartment, Elias sits on the edge of his couch, with his hands resting on his knees, breathing through the last waves of panic. It doesn't fade quickly, but it shifts, becoming something he can understand instead of fear. His mind feels clearer than it has in years. He realizes he spent so long running from the signals inside him that he forgot they were meant to guide him. He closes his eyes and lets the memories settle. Jonah's anger, the betrayal, the long silence that followed. The pieces don't hurt the same way now. They fit. For the first time, he feels like his mind and body are finally speaking the same language. And as he breathes deeper, he senses the old panic loosening its grip, as though acknowledging that he doesn't need protection in the same way anymore. The next day at work, Elias feels an unfamiliar steadiness as he sits at his desk. The hum of the office no longer presses into his mind the way it used to. Naomi glances over, noticing the calm in his shoulders, and asks if he's doing all right. Elias nods, surprised by how natural the answer feels. The tension that once gripped him each morning has softened, its sharp edges dulled by understanding. As he types, he feels the faint echo of old anxiety, but instead of fearing it, he listens. It carries no warning now, just habit. A leftover reflex from years of silence. He exhales slowly, realizing that healing doesn't erase the past. It just stops it from controlling every step forward. During lunch, Elias walks to the small park near the office, the same one where he once felt flashes of warning and unease. Now the air feels different, cool, open, steady. He sits on a bench beneath a bare tree, watching the branches sway in slow circles. A gentle wave of emotion rises in him, not fear but release. He thinks about how deeply he doubted himself, how long he lived believing his mind was the enemy. But now he sees the truth. His anxiety wasn't chaos. It was a signal he didn't know how to read. He closes his eyes and lets the breeze push across his face, feeling the quiet shift inside him, like something heavy finally letting go. That night, Elias stands by his window, looking out at the city lights moving far below. The quiet inside him feels open, like a space finally cleared of old echoes. He knows the healing isn't finished. The fear won't vanish overnight. But now he understands it, and that changes everything. He presses his hand lightly against the glass, feeling the cool surface steady him. His anxiety rises again in a faint hum, but it no longer twists his breath. Instead, it feels like a reminder, a gentle nudge to stay aware, stay grounded, stay honest with himself. For the first time, he feels ready to move forward without running from what lives inside him. He whispers a quiet truth into the night. He's not broken. He's learning. Elias wakes to gentle morning light, warming the edges of his room. For the first time in a long while, his chest feels open rather than tight. He sits up slowly, letting the quiet settle around him, and notices how different the silence feels now. It isn't heavy or sharp. It just exists, soft and steady. He gets out of bed and moves through the apartment with calm steps, touching the back of a chair, straightening a book, feeling grounded by small things he never used to notice. There's still a faint hum beneath his ribs, but it no longer feels like a threat. It feels like awareness, a reminder of how far he's come. He pauses near the window, watching the day begin, and whispers a small promise to himself. He won't run from his own mind again. Later at work, Elias walks into the office feeling lighter than he has in years. Naomi smiles when she sees him, a warm, knowing look that makes his chest loosen even more. He sits at his desk, letting the soft hum of keyboards and quiet voices settle around him. The familiar rhythm of the day doesn't overwhelm him this time. Instead, it feels like background music he can choose when to listen to. He takes a slow breath, noticing how easily it fills him without resistance. The echoes of the past still exist, but they no longer steer him. As he glances toward Naomi, he feels a quiet gratitude for the pieces of life he almost missed because he didn't understand his own mind. In the afternoon, Elias returns to the park, walking the same path where his anxiety once surged with warnings he didn't understand. Now the air feels steady, the trees calm, the sounds gentle and distant. He finds the same bench and sits down slowly, letting the breeze brush across his face. The memory of the old fear sits beside him, but it no longer digs into his chest. Instead, it feels like a chapter he's allowed to read without reliving. He closes his eyes, breathing deeply, letting the world move at its own pace. For the first time, he senses a quiet strength inside him, soft, steady, and real. That evening, Elias meets Mara for a final session. He sits across from her, feeling grounded in a way he once thought impossible. He explains how the panic still comes in small waves, but no longer breaks him. He tells her about confronting Jonah, about understanding the pain instead of running from it. Mara listens carefully, her calm presence comforting as always. She tells him healing is not a straight line, that he has learned to trust himself again. Elias feels the truth of those words settle warmly inside him. He leaves her office with a steady breath, realizing the version of himself who walked in weeks ago feels distant, like someone he finally learned how to help. At night, Elias sits on his balcony, watching the city glow below. The air is cool, the breeze soft, and the world feels wider than it used to. He leans back in his chair, letting the quiet wrap around him, not as something to fear, but as a place to rest. His anxiety hums faintly inside him. An old voice, no longer shouting but whispering reminders he can understand. He knows he will still have hard days, moments when the past presses close, but he also knows he can face them. He survived misunderstanding his own mind. Now, he can live by listening to it. As he gazes out at the lights flickering across the city, he breathes in the final truth he's earned. He is no longer afraid of himself.